Hello, I am Candia Raquel, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving it in a way that is full of self expression and free from inhibition. If you haven't already, please go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality at my website www.candiaraquel.com, which is CandiaRaquel.com. And I am very excited because today we have a very special guest. This is Stephanie Tack. She's a dancer, a somatic mover, and an expert in somatic pleasure. And we are about to share with you some very interesting explorations that may inspire you to finally get out of your head and into the pleasure of your body by using your senses, and most importantly, connecting with your gut feeling, with your intuition. But not only that, but also your instinct, your animal certainty. So you provide yourself the sense of safety that is fundamental to open for delighting in sensual pleasure. So, welcome, Stephanie. I am very happy to have you here.
Thank you. And I'm also really excited to be here because we had talked previously a little bit over the topics,
Yes.
and they're close to my heart and things that I've spent a lot of time researching with the senses and somatics, of course, and sensuality. And yeah, we were having some great insights. And so I'm so glad that we have the chance to share them with other people. Yeah.
Yes, we're ready to share them with a sensualist here. So tell us, what's your favorite sense?
I think sense of touch is my favorite sense. I mean, I'm a very visual person, so I also really enjoy taking in visual information, colors, shapes, textures, images. I think a lot in imagery, and I'm connected very deeply to the subconscious mind, and I feel very drawn to always research the subconscious mind. And so imagery is really important to me, and dream work and things like that. But I think I just really love touching and being touched, and I do a lot of somatic body work. So everybody is always, begging me to, give them some touch, whether it's sensual touch or healing touch. And there's so much information in a touch to give and to receive.
Yes, there's so much information in the sense of touch. It's really a primary sense. And nevertheless, I realize how uber ultra mega visually oriented I am. Like when someone is talking to me, I need to look at their faces in order to understand. And if I don't like to take phone calls since I discovered that can FaceTime because like now I don't have to ask for people to repeat me what they say. Because if I am listening to someone and then I see a butterfly full of colors, I get super derailed by my visuality. And also I am very imaginative in the strict sense of imagining images which pertain to an abstraction of our visual senses. And I feel that has to do a lot also with my education and my nerdiness, and especially our culture. Even though Mexico is quite a sensual place to live in, it's a really colorful place in contrast
Yeah,
to
very
say
colorful.
Amsterdam that I lived there a few years. That is mostly many shades of interesting gray, but it doesn't compare. So my question is, have you experienced imagining with the other senses? Because like I am super biased visually, like when I am with eyes open and in contact with reality, my visuality overrides touch, and sensuality and embodying pleasure, especially through the rest of the senses, is a challenge. And that's why I'm working on the mastery and teaching about it. So, what about you? Can you imagine sensations? Say, can you imagine that you are holding an apple in your hand, and then can you shift the imaginary sensation to be holding, say, a tennis ball? Can you sense the difference in your imagination in the same way that you can imagine a pink elephant and it pops in your mind?
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of the old uh I guess it's like what is it called? What is it called? Zen Buddhist thing where they say like don't think about monkeys.
Yes.
Now all you think about is monkeys.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like it's the subconscious messaging um that if you it's like how goals are achieved also because when you're manifesting you're thinking of the situation you want to be in, so it's the same thing. Like you can use a red apple, you know, like I'm visualizing a red apple in my hand. The way to 100% get into this would be to like close your eyes and to just take a nice inhale and exhale. Hold your hand out and start to visualize a beautiful red apple in your hand. And you can start to feel the weight of the apple, the density of the apple, whether it's a light apple or a more dense apple. You can start to imagine the color of it. I'm going to imagine a red apple, but you could also imagine a green apple, whatever is your favorite apple. And you can imagine the skin of the apple, whether it's shining or dull, if it's been waxed or picked fresh from a tree. And you can see the apple stem. And even getting closer, zooming in with your mind's eye to visualize the texture of the skin of the apples. Sometimes you see little tiny white flecks or pink flecks. It's not just a straight red or a straight green apple. It's got texture, and coming back to feeling the weight of the apple in the hand, really feeling like the apple's resting in your hand. And if you like apples, you might even start to feel like you can salivate a little bit in your mouth, thinking about taking a bite of the apple, thinking about the sound it's going to make when you crunch into it. And perhaps your mouth is getting more filled with saliva, and like mine is, anticipating the bite of this apple. And you can even think about the smell of that fresh, sweet, crisp apple. And you can even think about the time of year that you most like to eat apples. And if you can imagine a nice fall day with the apple in your hand, getting ready to take a bite, now you're fully getting into your senses, hearing the crunch, smelling the sweet smell. Maybe there's some cinnamon tea that you're going to enjoy with this apple, and getting your sense of taste ready to receive the apple, and your sense of touch with holding the apple, and your sense of sight, just visually imagining that apple. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Did you feel like you connected with the senses of the
Yeah,
apple?
yeah, I am smiling carefully not to rule.
Yeah,
Because
I was salivating a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
I am salivating, and wow, it's amazing how actually when you say like you take a bite and you notice the crunchy sound, the crunch is a very reflective word of the sound. So I was like, wow, I can imagine sounds. And of course, Beethoven became deaf, and most of, well, a big bunch of his works were like he just imagined the sounds, and he wrote those fantastic concerts. So like, wow, it's impressive. And I could even get an imaginary sense of the smell of the fragrance of the apple, and also the temperature. And very interesting. It wasn't that easy because I immediately saw in my mind's eye the apple and the monkeys. And after a few seconds that you mentioned the monkeys, I listened the sound of monkeys. So now I like realize how important is imagination
Yes.
to drop from our discursive, habitual discursive thinking into the realm of the senses and the realm of the flesh, and also to realize how much we already live big part of our lives imagining worst case scenarios most often than creative proactive scenarios, and how important it is to be aware of our conscious processes and not identify ourselves with our discursive thinking. Like, okay, thinking is like our one of our processes. It's not who we are, and therefore we can act on it. And this brings me to how the senses brings us from our discursive thinking into our body and enables us towards action. Because after imagining the apple, I felt like more with my juices flowing, like more ready to move and to do and to act. And I've been researching about anxiety, and there's a very great quote from this Jacques Lacan, the great psychoanalyst, who said, to act is to snatch the certainty of anxiety, because anxiety is paralyzing and it has this ominous sensation of certainty, like, oh, this is gonna happen, but you're paralyzed and you are not neither reacting nor responding, which is the worst possibilities of all. And I feel the way to get out of anxiety is first to enable yourself to move, enable yourself to physically act or to make a call or to write an email or to run or to kick or whatever. And imagination is like a great bridge. And I feel that another and maybe most natural way to drop from the overthinking head to the body is by being in touch with our spidey senses. So, so can you recall one time where you like really relied on your spidey senses, or the first time that you discovered that, oh, there's more to it than just analysis?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it happens every day, right? I mean, for me, it does at least. Maybe for the normal person, they're going to probably have something like a few times a week where they feel like they're in their spidey senses. But I want to go back to something that you were talking to earlier. So it's like, you know, yes, okay, so first of all, one thing I want to say that was coming up for me is that, yeah, we're too focused on the cognitive sense and the cognitive strength and the cognitive power. And we're relating to this idea to be rational and to think things out. Actually, this sense of like intuition where you just somehow know things immediately in the blink of an eye, upon meeting somebody, okay, I can identify like, "Oh, I don't know, this person's got like, they look kind of shady, or this person seems cool. I accept them. I feel safe with them." That's all made up in a split second. And so, yeah, we do have like powers. We have what I would call powers. And these powers, I think, are different for everybody. That's why, there's all these different clairs, like clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, all these different extrasensory perception abilities that people have. But they come down to really like senses, right? So, some people have like a really bionic sense of smell. I'm one of those people. I can smell sometimes somebody chewing gum like across the street from me. Like I can smell really, really good, like somebody's cologne that's on the other side of the street. Or some people are very visual. They just can visualize, yeah, like you're visualizing stuff, or you're just very sensitive to colors. Like, okay, I know that I'm wearing black almost all the time, and part of it is because I'm sensitive to colors. I have to be in the mood to wear like this type of red shawl or something. Otherwise, I prefer like neutrals. So this visual information, some people are just more sensitive to it, just like musicians train their ear to listen. So then they become really sensitive to sounds. I don't know if you've ever been with a musician and they're, oh, do you hear that sound? Something's driving them nuts and I don't even hear it. And I'm like, "What, you hear something?" And they're like, yeah, there's something buzzing. They'll hear the refrigerator in the other room buzzing, and I've just blocked it out or I don't notice it. I just don't have the ear training to get it. So I think that everybody has already naturally probably some senses that they lean into more than others. And then some people, they're training their senses. And I think it's possible, especially through doing somatic work, where you can really train your senses to become more sensitive. And the more you can train your senses to become more sensitive, the more you can put yourself into that state of really receiving pleasure through the senses. And the mind is thinking always like so fast, just a million miles an hour. And technology is kind of like that same kind of energy. Everything's moving fast, but actually the body and the senses, it's on a slower rhythm. So we kind of have to slow down a bit to get like out of that thinking logic mind and into the senses. And we need to do a little bit of training with the senses to awaken them and to re-excite them so that we can get into this space of like, ooh, like I'm getting inspired by my sense of sight, and I'm getting inspired by the color red or the shape of a heart, or I'm getting inspired by the smell of apples. Maybe I'm going to go and buy like a bunch of apples and bake something and make a super killer apple crumble or something. So I think it leads to creativity. It leads to being connected to your desires more deeply. And so, yeah, so about the Spidey sense comes in because it's a sense that's kind of like outside of those senses. I think some people relate to extrasensory perception as your senses being really blown up. But then I've also read other descriptions of ESP or extrasensory perception where it's something that exists outside of the five senses. And it is that Spidey sense of, like, for instance, knowing that somebody's looking at you. You're like, okay, I know somebody's watching me. You often hear that with people where there was like a crime done to them. They often say, like, yeah, I knew somebody was watching me and then this thing happened.
Yeah, I knew someone was watching me.
Yeah, you get a sense. You can feel it, like the eyes, people say the eyes in the back of the head. I
Yeah,
can feel I have eyes in the back of my head or something like this.
yeah, and how
Especially if they're
crazy.
staring at you.
Yeah, you sense it, and I think we
That's
have
the evil
all.
eye, by the way.
Oh, they that's very interesting. And I think we all can relate to the experience of someone calling your name and you turn exactly to face the person behind you that is calling your name, that is, I don't know, your high school classmate or someone. And in that exact way, in that exact manner of precision, you can turn your head behind you to the exact place that the eyes are located of someone who's looking at you. But how come you listen and you turn to that exact spot where the person is, but also without knowing, like rationally knowing that someone is looking at you, you turn and look and meet the glance of that person. And also, I don't do it often, but it had happened to me that I have a crush on someone, and I try not to look at the guy because then the guy is gonna turn and he's gonna catch me watching him, and I'm gonna turn tomato red because I super blush, and I cannot hide it. But I think that's that's like a fact that that we have this spidey sense, though it's mostly numbed out and dormant because we don't believe in it either, though we use it. And
It's an
about yeah,
animal. Yeah, it's like an animal instinct, And I think, if you look at animals, they have a whole different presence to their body than humans do. They're really like in their body because they're sensing through almost like the whole surface of their skin and everything. They're feeling and sensing this environment around them. They're listening. When you're using your senses so strongly and you're kind of dropping out of the executive function of the brain and dropping more into like the low brain or the primal aspect of the brain, you're dropping into those kind of like primal instincts. And if you think about the animal nature within people, yeah, of course, we are built for being able to sense our external environment and gauge the safety around us. So when somebody's watching you, that primal instinct that's within you that says, am I safe in my environment? Wait a second. Then you're dropping out of your mind and you're kind of going into that eyes on the back of the head feeling. People say the hairs on the back of my
yeah,
neck start.
yeah, telepathy is activated because I was about to say that. Yeah,
Yes,
the hairs.
telepathy activated, dude.
Yeah,
Exactly. So it's that feeling like, oh, the animal in me knows something's there. And before you're even thinking, you're dropping down into that sense and you're turning. Because, like you said, we have that echolocation in the ear. Like if somebody dropped keys over here, there's an ability to echolocate, just like a bat. And I know, okay, wait, that sound came from over here somewhere, you know? Granted, you have normal acoustics, you're going to be able to figure out, like, okay, the sound came from over there. So if we have the echolocation ability, and we know that we have echolocation ability, which also bats have, whales have, dolphins have, we also probably have other things that other mammals and animals have that we just don't understand yet. Other things programmed into us to engage with our external environment and with external stimuli, all for the cause of safety, you know. So yes, when the hairs stand up on the back of your neck, you're in that sensing place, and that sensing place and that feeling place is really kind of like the sixth sense because it's not eyesight. It's not the sight of smell. It's not the sight of taste. It's not the sight of touch. It's not the sight of hearing. So it's something else. It's a different type of sense.
yeah, something else.
There are more than five senses, in other words.
There are more than five senses, definitely. And in regards to that, I want to to know what's your take on trusting the body, meaning what's the thin line between paranoia and fact, and the certainty of intuition and instinct, and that you better fucking run away, or the instinct of, oh, moving in this way because then we like you're with your beloved, and if you keep on this track you're gonna arrive to uh, orgasm in sync, which is wonderful. So I believe it has to do with for pleasure and survival, given that these are functions of our most animalistic nature. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here if our ancestors weren't in tune with that, like senses and beyond. But now that we are very civilized and also very numbed, and we live with our phones glued to our hand and our brains glued to the screen and the feed and whatever, like we live a lot in our imagination and our projective thinking that
Mm.
can be close to to delusion, and we can bring that delusion into the body, and one expression of that is, say, anxiety or paranoia. So how can we tell when it's true that, okay, this is a moment that we need to cross the street because something in you is telling you to get on the watch? And what's the difference between going vigilant, and what's the difference of being a masterful lover, and or being like a protocolar lover that wants to look cool and ruins everything?
I mean, gosh, there's so much in what you just said. My brain was kind of going in a bunch of different directions all at once. I mean, one thing is that I was thinking is that like safety has a lot to do with it. So I think when you feel safe with your partner, it's easier to get to the point where you can achieve orgasm. I think a lot of people that have sexual abuse, or who have been raped or things like this, they sometimes can stop having the ability to have an orgasm for some time because they don't feel safe, or it's like triggering some unsafe memory for them. And I would say, some people probably have like a kink towards being in unsafe situations. And so they're going to be the outliers. So, of course, this isn't across the board, but I think just the animal nature is that when you're completely feeling safe, then you can feel completely relaxed. And when you can get into a completely relaxed state, then you can trust yourself to and trust your environment and the person you're with, people you're with, to go into that state where you can really receive pleasure. And then, if you're feeling safe enough to express yourself, then you can express that pleasure. I think a lot of people, they, especially if it's like a first time with somebody or something like that, they might not feel safe enough to even express their own pleasure. And which is why a lot of people, it takes them several times of getting together with a lover or a boyfriend or something to not only learn each other's erogenous zones and pleasure parts and pleasure practices and things like that, but also to just get into the place where they feel comfortable and safe enough to, have that full experience together where you're really like coming together and having that kind of Kundalini orgasm simultaneously. Um, so that's one thing about safety and the importance of safety in the senses, because I was leading a smelling ritual, like a whole tantric ritual around smell. And we did this event with a colleague of mine. And it was really interesting to see how once we put people like at calm and at ease, you can, as the facilitator, I was seeing people like opening and opening and opening throughout the night and getting less and less anxious, less and less worried, more into that sense of just knowingness, and more dropped out of the brain and more kind of into the body and into this experience, because over time they're building rapport with people. They're building, I mean, for this particular event, people came in couples, but still, if you have a bunch of couples and they're around other couples that they've never been with before, then you have the threat of other people sharing the same space. And as they went through this like smelling ritual, you can tell the deeper they were getting into the senses, the more almost like into a trance state they were going. And it was really kind of like taffy. Everything was getting pulled out and slowed down. And then I started to notice people really starting to feel the difference between like actually feeling that sensual touch and just kind of like touching somebody, So just taking that extra time, and it's really bonding between people, between lovers, to be able to spend that time like connecting with each other into the senses physically, and to create that safe bond with somebody. And I think your body does, like you were saying, your body has certain internal processing to alert you, just like the primal instincts with the fight flight are alerting us to our external environment. Okay, now I know, I don't know why, but I just feel like I got to get out of this block or like off this dark street, or like I'm just getting this feeling somebody's watching me. That's all primal instincts. The animal in you is telling you to flee, to run, to go this way, go that way. That's like an instant thing. But the intuition is a combination. It's an integration process for decision making, and the intuition lives within the body. And inside that intuition, it's processing all the experiences you've ever had, everything you've ever learned, all the emotions that you're having and that you've experienced in the past emotional experience. And it's integrating the experience together and saying, okay, do I feel safe? Do I feel like I'm in an environment where I'm going to thrive? Am I in a good situation right now? And that intuition process is quite instant. And so within the body, we can check in. We can check in with ourselves, and we can also check in with our partners and saying, like, now, how are you feeling right now? Do you feel relaxed? Would you like to just stay here? Maybe we're going to cuddle for a second here before we move further. Maybe we can just hold each other and whisper into each other's ears, or maybe we can just caress each other and embrace each other and just hold each other for a moment. And that sensory feedback of the touch on the skin is also tremendously relaxing and reminds us of when we were babies and being held. And this just being silent with a touch that actually does nothing but just touching. There's so much information in the touch that it can really relax you like so deeply. So yeah, so we check in with our bodies, and the body has built-in systems for telling us, like, no, I want to stop here. I've been enjoying interacting with you, and after kissing and after cuddling, like I don't want to go any further. You're gonna know. Like if you just stop and take the time to check in, you'll know. Your body will tell you, is this a yes for me? Is this a no for me? The body, Candace Pert says that the body is the subconscious mind. So that intuition is connected to the subconscious mind. It's tapping into that subconscious mind. It's pulling in all the images of those past experiences, and it's saying, you know what? Right now, today, tonight, right in this moment, I'm good with just we kissed, we cuddled. Now I kind of need my alone time, and my body is going to tell me that. Just in the same way that, like, if you get injured or something, you kind of know what you need. You kind of know, okay, wait, something ain't right. Like my hip never hurt like this before. I think I pulled something. I know I need to lay down, or I know I need to walk, or I know I need to stretch, or I know I need to ice it. Your intuition is going to tell you how to meet your needs.
Your body will always tell you what to do. Is you always somehow know when you listen, and that listening is the certainty of intuition. And I love how how the way to trust in what your body, mind, and your everythingness is telling you is by first ensuring safety. And this is especially important with a history of suffering, being abuse, trauma, or say, even if you're a warrior, if you like have to defend yourself or the people that you love, it's very common to deal with post-traumatic stress disorder, which one key component is relapsing into the fatal memories and memories of terrible episodes. And I love how the trust with the body and trust in what your body is telling you is and can be rebuilt by a constant listening and a constant wandering and a very gentle and respectful self-relating, especially when coupled, because like it never occurred to me. Of course, if I am uncomfortable, I am very gutsy and I can say stop. But that's one thing, and really, I am even surprised now to confess that I had never like really asked myself if I am really enjoying and if I am ready to go to the next step, or if it's better for me to stay here and just cuddle, nor to hold that space for the beloved. And well, in a way, it makes sense coming from the dance background and from science, that science is all about, well, you talk about what you can prove, which is very little. You can only take for certainty and for fact whatever that can be proven and repeated, and it's independent from you as the observer. And dance, it's supposed to be like a, a transparent art of what the body talks and says, in my case, had been like hijacked and overshadowed by technique and endurance, especially against pain. Like the audience doesn't give a fuck if your toenail have just fall as you are doing pointe work, and like you better not stain with blood your satin pink super expensive dance shoes that you don't have money to buy another pair. So like, oh, maybe I have unrecognized traumas. I mean, not that bad traumas, but I think we all have even little traumas just living in this crazy society, and how important it is to hold space for ourselves, and to, even if you know the person or even if you are self-pleasuring yourself, to ask yourself, how how am I feeling? And what you said, time is a key factor, because the other day you shared with me on our personal conversations that it's the communication that we are having right now runs at the speed that we are pretty much used to, but the speed in our body is different, and the time that you send the inquiry to the very deep depths of yourself, the question is processed and digested, and then the answer emerges as consent or denial of consent. Takes time, and sometimes it's an immediate knowing, like this instinct and these and reflexes, but sometimes it can take longer, and it's fascinating for me to see how challenging it suddenly is to to allow myself for all that space of limbo and uncertainty, which means pausing, which means stopping. Like only yes means yes for the body, and and it's important not to force oneself. And in my case, I have a training in forcing myself and going beyond my limits, and performing even with injuries, and how the path to oof, perhaps the path to living authentically with yourself is to slow down, pause, and create this container of safety, so you can restore the trust in your body, and yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that when you have that trust or that sense of knowingness, that is the remedy to anxiety. Because when you're anxious, it's first of all, that anxiety is your body is trying to communicate something to you. It's trying to tell you how, in some way, you're in some misalignment. And most likely you're in a situation you don't want to be in, or you are going through something stressful and you just want to get through it, or you don't want to be in it. And we're experiencing anxiety because we're adults and we're thinking, okay, we have to do this. The logic is I have to do this thing in order to get this thing. I have to go to the doctor in order to get good health. I have to go to the job interview in order to get the job. I have to do the things I don't necessarily want to do to get to the other side and have that thing complete and done. And, not to mention this like everyday anxiety that a lot of people have and that I've had at certain times in my life where you're just kind of like, something's not right. And I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling anxious all the time. And I found through time that you can stop and check in with yourself. And so for me, I realized over my years that, you can be living a life on a spiritual path where you're in an active engagement in your own process. And what that means is that, hell yeah, I'm checking in with my body and I'm saying what's going on. I'm also thinking my thoughts, but I'm not letting my thoughts rule me. Just like you have to have a good, if you see a guy and he's a pile of red flags, okay, even if you're in love with him, your head says, don't effing do it, you know? And so you have to balance out the head with the heart in those situations. And just likewise, you have to balance out the intellect with the body because, they're both going to give you different types of information. It's all part of our integration and decision-making process to get through the labyrinth of life. So if you want to get through the labyrinth of life, your best bet, especially if you want to have a conscious life and to choose and create your own reality, is to have a conscious life, is to, at every turn in the maze, stop yourself, slow down, and think, am I going this way or am I going that way? What is my internal compass telling me at every crossroad? And if you think about it, there's crossroads happening every single day. And so you can really be in this creative co-creation process with your life if you're constantly checking in with yourself and just figuring it out. And then you'll come up with questions. Okay, I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? Then you have to listen. You have to sit back and listen. Sometimes it might not come for a day or two, but eventually something inside you will whisper to you and say, you know what? I never really did get along with that boss that I had. And maybe I'm unhappy because this job isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Then you start to get deeper into it and you're like, no, definitely it's my job. I think I'm unhappy. I feel unappreciated. Okay, now you're starting to get somewhere with your process. Likewise, when it comes to partners, you can start to be in a process with yourself and say like, okay, well, this guy looks really attractive and we had a kiss at the party and I'm interested. He did write me a text message afterwards and he asked me to go out, but I guess what I'm feeling is that I don't want this or I don't want that and I do want this and I do want that. Do I communicate my needs now? Do I wait until later? And so you start to get into this process where you start to understand what you need and what you want in order to have like an alignment within yourself that gives you a life that you feel, when you have alignment within yourself and you're in that process and discovering things about yourself every day, then you're living like a really creative life. And the creativity connects to that Kundalini energy, right? Because it's in the pelvic chakra and it's swirling around and it's connecting sexually, it's connecting creatively, it's connecting to your safety and security in that root chakra, and it's swirling around. And if you get it going, it's going to come all the way up your spine and snake bite you, snake bite you in your third eye and awaken your ass. And so that's for me, I really enjoy this process of dropping into my body. And you know what? At times I'm asking myself, how do you feel? And I'm like, I don't know. And that's okay too, because that's part of the process. And at least you're spending the practice to ask yourself, what's going on with myself? then you can really be free because you can break free of templates of what other people want you to be, and you're just in your own life process with yourself, you know? And I do think that the senses are a really good wormhole to get into this type of creative and conscious living because we become numb in ways, you know? We become numb because we are just used to. You know, as women, I think we are used to being certain types of people, and we're taught from childhood and groomed in such a way to be this way and that way, and to be support systems and blah, blah, blah. And when you start to see that stuff and feel that stuff through your body, what's sitting right with you? What's sitting wrong with you? You know, this guy said something to me. I don't know, I'm not feeling good about it. Then you start to feel, okay, yes, actually, like I allowed this person to order me around, or I allowed this person to do this thing, and yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And then you start to create boundaries and all kinds of healthy stuff. So I know that was like a Pandora's box that I just
Yes,
opened.
yes, a Pandora's box that included Ariadne's red thread to
Yes,
navigate that labyrinth. Because if you don't have the tools to arrive safely somewhere, meaning climax or meaning delight or meaning going back to your home from work, then it's better to stay inside the box of safety as limited as it can be, especially
exactly.
when one is dealing with any kind of huge, mild, or mini trauma. And I am really loving these these tools that you are sharing with us of asking oneself, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? And letting the question sink in the depths of the flesh, and having the patience to let the muddy water settle until you find the answer. And again, this is an act of gentleness and respect to our own life, the life that we are here to guard, that is our responsibility, meaning you, your flesh, your body, your health, and allowing for whatever times it takes for the answer to marinate and be ready to be expressed in an action, in a decision, in a communication, in a boundary setting. And most importantly, and even shocking for me that I am super self-pushy, I always push myself, which is a survival mechanism. But the problem is when you go meet your beloved dressed in your suit of armor with your shield and your sword, and your beloved is either gonna run away or he's gonna also grab his sword and suit of armor and shield, and it's like, okay, let's fight. Or and I mean, that has nothing to do with the present, nor with the available gifts that the moment is ready to give us. It has to do with repeating the past. And what I'm trying to say is that, wow, I really need to stop at every turn of the maze of my experiences in pleasure. And for example, am I gonna force myself to edit this video, upload, and then hang the laundry and wash the dishes and wash the curtains and go train? And it's like, okay, what if I ask myself for consent? and not my executive mind nor my people pleasing childhood wound, but how about if I ask myself, my fleshy self, that that part of my being that really knows the state of affairs with myself, like, am I ready for this? And is and this strengthens the channels of communication of this deep fleshly knowing that is the instinct, and also its refined expression that is intuition, like you mentioned, that takes into account not only the feeling but also the almost like um, immediate certainty of assessing of complexities. So yes, let's explore, let's safely explore the maze of life and pleasure by stopping at every turn and guiding ourselves with our red thread, like Ariadne did.
Yeah, and two things are coming up for me right now. One is that trust, because it's not only patience, the patience to slow down and ask yourself questions and be engaged in the process, but then to listen to the answers and then come back with like a second question. And sometimes in that waiting period, it requires trust because you need to realize that when you're ready to hear that answer, it will come to you. You might not be ready to hear that answer yet, so it's maybe not going to come to you. Maybe you have to ask a different question, but to be in this process where you're, in a negotiation process almost with this. Then the other thing that's coming up for me is, if you think about a maze, you do those mazes when you're a kid, and they're sometimes like on the outside of a cereal box or something where you're just trying to move your a pen like through the maze and you're supposed to make it out the other side. So you're finding, and then sometimes you go down a path and you're like, oh no, that's not the right one. So you go back out again. And then you're trying to find your way. Well, it's reminding me that, like, just like that in life, you sometimes go down the wrong path. It's not that it's the wrong path. You're just exploring. You're exploring one part of the maze, but then you see it's a dead end for you. So then retracing, which is where the Ariadne's thread comes in, right? Because the thread's there so that they can retrace. And the thread is the way that you find your way out of the maze. But to lay the thread, first you have to go through the maze. Then you hold on to the thread because it's the only thing you have to hold on to in order to get out of the thread, out of the maze or out of the labyrinth. So the thing that I'm trying to, key into right now is this concept of like exploration, where you don't always take quote unquote the right path, but you course correct. If you're on a plane and you want to go from New York City to Los Angeles, and all of a sudden they land the plane in Chicago, you're not going to say, okay, cool, now I'm in Chicago. No, you say, okay, where's the next plane to LA? Because they're expecting me there. I got to get back on the plane. So, just like that, knowing what your true north is, knowing what your navigation system is, and you can really tap into that through the body, that's going to be like your red thread. Your body is never going to let you down. You've got to follow that. And sometimes it will take explorations down little side paths. And sometimes you will seemingly go backwards in order to go forwards. But it's in the course correction and the true north, and to know which way to move forward. And so it's like the using your intuition and your spidey senses as almost like a compass to figure out what is my truth, where shall I go from here, what's going to bring my fire and my passion, what's going to light me up, what's going to make my life worth living. And like I said before, once you're in that space, you're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the world, really, because we need to be in a place where we're collectively imagining like positive futures and where we're actively engaging with life so that we can not choose these paths of pain and trauma recreation, but we can break through those templates, break through those patterns, and move forward in a way where we're almost like cleaning the karmic slate, you know?
Yes, cleaning the karmic slate. And here comes creativity. And creativity is fucking scary because you don't know how the cake is gonna come out of the oven after your creative experiment. But again, you shared with us another great key. Like, yes, you are embarking into the labyrinth because you have to or because you so choose to. Of course, it's always better to choose how to navigate your life, but sometimes life throws at you curveballs and you cannot hide nor run. You have to move forward. And it's fucking scary to face the unknown. Like if you choose something weird, at least you choose it and you are finding your way. But if you got fired or your beloved dumped you or you broke a leg or and the currency exchange in your country sucks out of nowhere, then you you better get creative. And anxiety is a creativity paralyzer. And it's key what you said that there are two steps to cut through the unknown, like creatively. And this is that first you have to go through the maze in order to learn the about the path. So you first embark on the journey, and as you go on the journey, you course correct. And that's when we can understand that the journey is the destination itself. The process is what sustains the fruition. And you go in through the maze and and you thread your path through it. But it's only when you come at the same crossroads that you've already been before that you realize, okay, I've been here before. This is a dead end because I have the thread, the mark to prove it. So I learn and go a different way, and that's how you course correct. So yeah, the two things is to first go explore and trust that whenever you have enough information, you will course correct. So then there's no wrong journey but the one that is not taken, perhaps. And it's very empowering because it's sustained in in the safety that brings the knowing that you will choose for yourself.
Yes.
You will choose what's
Yeah.
best for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's the power of I don't have to live my life in some template of what's come before me. I can actually choose, every crossroads, every step of the way, how I want to interact with my internal and external environments to a certain degree, right? But most of the time, yes. And if you're awake in that way and you're doing that, at first it is kind of scary because it's uncharted territory and it's actually a responsibility. It's a responsibility because then rather than just doing what everybody says you should do, like, yeah, okay, go get a job and make some money and have a family and buy a house and all of that stuff is fine and it's great if it's really from your heart what you want to do. But like finding that from your heart thing that you want to do, I'll come back to that idea like dreaming and becoming, because it's like in this space of intuition and being connected to, as Candace Pert says, the body is the subconscious mind, being connected into the body as the subconscious mind, listening and co-creating and being in this conscious life living process, that's the way that we're going to be able to yes, connect to the intuition and to find our true north with our way forward, and to yeah, I'm like losing my thread because it's like it's a little complicated in my mind. I'm trying to think of a way to simplify it. Um, Trust is obviously part of it. Um, Hold on a sec. I feel like I wrote this down in my notes. Maybe you can talk for a second and I'm gonna find the part.
Yes,
Um,
I wanted to share that with the pandemic, I closed my Pilates studios, and it was like a very challenging decision because that's what I have invested all my life, 10 years of my life, and I gave teacher trainings. And then I was faced with the possibility of shifting everything online, which never occurred to me, and actually rebranding from being a Pilates master teacher training trainer and having like the single national franchise of the biggest Pilates worldwide brand just for myself. Like, wow, it sounds super crazy to sell everything half price, everything that took me so much, like blood, flesh, and tears, to suddenly say say goodbye. And I was faced at a life-changing crossroads of my internal maze. And something that helped me take the decision was that, okay, no one knows what's going to happen after the pandemic. So this is the perfect excuse to escape the life I built, because if everything was like great, it wouldn't have made any sense to demolish a huge building that was giving profit. So I bet for the unknown, and something that helped me was to make that pause and send the question to myself. The question that I didn't had the capacity to behold the weight of its answer, that was, am I happy doing this? Is this what I want my life to be about? Like for the next 40 years of my life? Or or no? Like, it says, imagine you are on a happy marriage with kids and house and mortgage and everything for 15 years, and you're like, everything looks very good on the outside and it's okay for you. It's very dangerous to ask yourself if you love the motherfucker, because if the answer is no,
the
then there's
foundation
no,
is rocked.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like utter demolishment, and it would be like a betrayal to your own heart to stay there. So, like, either you choose to betray yourself for the sake of your children, which in 25 years will tell you that you're a hypocrite and a bad mother for giving the example of cowardice, or you're thinking that you're sacrificing for their good, and it's the worst that you can.
oh
Yeah,
my God.
fortunately, it was not my case. It was a business situation, but it was the same caliber. And what helped me was to say, like, okay, I'm gonna dare do this, because the answer is no. I don't love what I used to love so much, that gave me the potency to build out of nowhere. But
Yeah.
I choose to save the love that I have that had the potency of building this, and trust that if I ever fall in love again with this project, I am gonna be able to build it again from scratch, as I already did once. And it's terrible. It's like I don't know if it's Cocteau or I don't remember the author, but he said like, what should you do if your house is burning down to ashes? What should you do if your heart, if your heart, if your house is on fire? And he advised, save the fire. So let your house burn down, but save the fire in your heart. And I believe that when you come to this place, you can dare to listen your truth and live authentically, following your intuition. And we tend to sacrifice this for the apparent insurance of societal safety of mortgage and whatever, which doesn't insure shit. People retire and statistically they die before a decade. Because why? Because their heart already turned into a stone. They may be still alive, but they died in the moment that they decided to stay in the dead end of the maze they choose.
Yeah, that's right. It's all like a choice point, really. And you're right. Sometimes we feel we have to make a sacrifice for, especially for children in a marriage, or a sacrifice for a family member that needs caring for, or even just a sacrifice to yourself because you feel that you need to live up to a certain thing, or socially you feel the pressure to have the money or to be this type of person. And at the same time, like you said, you're dead inside. I have so many friends and so many people I know that, take antidepressants, or, are otherwise like unhappy with their lives because they actually don't want to be doing what they're doing, whether it's staying in a marriage, that they don't want to be in anymore, or whether it's just that they, are burned out on their job and they once loved it, but then now they just do it because they have children to support and they need to continue it. And I think part of that, because I think in the long run, my brother had gotten a divorce, and he was waiting for a long time to get divorced. And he waited till his kids were 18, which I think a lot of people try to wait until their kids are 18. And then his kids said afterwards to him, Dad, we knew you were miserable the whole time. Like, why did you stay? Like, you shouldn't have stayed for us. We knew because, kids know more than you think they know. They're actually like very pure, and they figure stuff out. They just intuit and they see what's happening. They're not stupid. And you're right. You set up a role model of don't follow your heart, be in misery, don't do what you want to do. And it's sending like a certain message. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like a lot of people wouldn't have the bravery to dismantle something that they built, like a business that they built, because socially they don't want to look bad, or look flaky, or look irresponsible, or look like they're giving everything up. People are going to judge you and say, "Oh, why did you do that? Like that was stupid." Or like, "Wow, it was so successful. What happened?" They think something happened they don't know about and they don't understand really. And that, for me, it comes back down a lot to like trusting in the process. Because sometimes you get dragged through hell, but then afterwards, it's all because it was part of your ascension process or learning program or whatever. But in this life, in this body, we only have a certain amount of years to live. And so, I luckily have always been the person that just goes for stuff no matter what. And I've always done what I've been passionate about and what I wanted to do. But yeah, I relate to this too because I've had moments where I'm really struggling to figure it out. And I wanted to come back to what I was trying to say before about dreaming and becoming because I did write some notes about it that will help me explain it. So can we segue back over to that? It kind of has to do with what you're saying because you leave the old thing, right? You leave the thing that was, you leave the you who used to exist. And now there's like a transition time to becoming the person that you're going to be, becoming the next iteration. What comes next after the Pilates studio? What comes next after this marriage? And it takes a certain amount of trust that whatever that thing is that's coming next is actually going to be better than the situation that you're in now, and to let go of that thing that has no flame in the heart anymore, to like let the house burn down and to save the flame for your heart to like ignite your passion. So what I was trying to say before about like dreaming as a practice of becoming is that in these moments when you're in transition, that is probably the scariest moment where you really have to self-navigate so much and you might have to, in the maze, go down several different wrong paths, experimenting, exploring. And it's hard to just think of, okay, this is going to be an experimentation phase for me, or this is an exploring phase for me, or this is a dating phase for me. I need to get to know new people. I need to try new classes. Maybe I'm going to like something, even better than I liked Pilates, or maybe I'm synthesizing the Pilates stuff in creating something totally new that nobody's done before. And so in that time where you're freshly making all of those decisions, right? You're using your intuition, you're using your instincts, you're using your checking in with your body, you're using your senses to feel around you. Where might I want to go next? What might I want to do? You're using your subconscious mind to dream it into being, like, oh, I just really want to have a farm in Portugal. It's going to be beautiful. We're going to have lots of property. I'm going to have all my friends that can come over there and live. And we're going to, create this wellness center and whatever your dream is, right? It starts to shape and form itself. And then in those moments where you've left the old thing and you're going towards the new thing, whether it's the old you going towards the new you, the old career going towards the new career, the, evolution of the family and the family structure changing, because that's not going to go away, but it'll shift and change into a new co-parenting family structure or structure where you're staying connected with the kids in a different way. Whatever that shift is, it becomes like a timeline shift is what it is. And then when you make that timeline shift, then everything in your life like reorients. And then you're like, okay, buddy, on the video game of life, I just freaking leveled up. But you have to go through that like trusting, courageous phase where you face your fears first.
Yes, next level unlocked. And here comes this like interweaving and maybe even sameness and safeness between intuition and desire. So a part of you that dreams you is already there, pulling you in the same way that we are here because we agreed to be here on the past, but this intention of recording this episode pulled us on the timeline until we arrived to the fruition. And I, I'm loving this timeline shift and jumping and how important it is to dare to listen to oneself, and rely in the certainty of where are you choosing to go on each crossroad according to the intuitive, instinctive data that you have as your thread, and also your rational knowing. So it's everything, but I believe it's deeply built on the safety that means to know that you are strong enough to say no to you, to yourself, like no, stop. You don't have consent to do that to you, or to allow your partner to do that, or to go to the next stage of intimacy, or there's an I don't know, so you have to wait for the answer, or you have a yes. And then if you have a yes, it's like yes means go. And it means like an instantly go. And it's very interesting because when you say yes to your internal yes, like when you agree to go for what you want, it is as if you were carried forward with all the potency of your vitality and your life force. And it's crazy because I have been thinking all the morning on sharing with you a quote from Mike Tyson that finally, like, I understood it from a mental level, but now I know it in my body. And he said, you remember, he was like God on earth in the realm of boxing. And he said in one interview, you have to become the champion before becoming the champion. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. You have to fucking train a lot. And now I really get it. He was sharing how he dreamt himself into being, because Mike Tyson wasn't Mike Tyson before, nor Madonna, nor Marilyn Monroe. They came into being, and it was a deliberate becoming. It was not the paved road of apparent certainty that doesn't guarantees you anything. And what I really love about these deep discernments that we're getting is that there is a sensuous feeling to it. Like Mike Tyson walking to the ring, he, he was like hot, sexy motherfucker. Or Madonna at any stage and any age, she hasn't given up on her life force. Or Marilyn Monroe, she was like with some expressions of being on the fifth orgasm on a row. And the other day I thought, like, he was in a room in a set with a paper. It was not a real wall behind her, it was a paper, and with a photographer and makeup artist and people walking around, whatever. And she was in her private paradise, in her inner party, and she was in such a state that the imprint of that moment in her life is still alive in every subway station of Mexico City. You're going to see a poster of Madonna, not Britney Spears, not Ariana Grande, not Lady Gaga, Marilyn Monroe, because it was such an honest and authentic expression of life, of her life at that moment in time, that And why wouldn't we live a fully lived life? Why wouldn't we? It's even safer.
Yeah, and I mean, dreaming and becoming in this way is also like the biggest turn on, right? Because you're
Yes.
just like, you get so excited if there's something that you want to move towards, and you're like, oh, yeah, actually, like, I really want to explore this side of myself, or I really want to, do this thing. Not only is it like magical because random people come out of the woodwork and you're like, who are these new people in my life, And then you meet like really crazy, cool people. I mean, there's so many cool people in the world, but they will all come out of the woodwork when you're making changes. And it's like when you level up and do that timeline shift and you go through that quantum shift where you're suddenly operating on a different level, then the people that come into your life are also next level and the experiences are next level. And to get there, I do believe it takes some sort of drilling down into that, what you're talking about, that like being in your vital life force, turned on, and just letting that thing like flame within you, because then it's like a moth to the flame. Like people are drawn to that, And I always feel like when I'm in those moments where I've done something and I feel like I'm so in my element, that then people are really drawn to me, and men are asking me out, and like people want to know me, and like everybody thinks I'm so cool. And really what it is it's about harnessing your power, because in that moment you're like in full alignment, you're totally turned on, your fire within is burning bright, and you just light up and you become powerful, and you put yourself into these situations that are like your power place. By the way, if you want, we could do like a little
Yeah.
somatic visualization, like on this kind of idea.
Yes, definitely. I want to be a lighthouse also.
Yeah. I'm wondering if, yeah, maybe I'm going to, well, did you want to respond to what I was saying?
Also, both things that I really love the maze tool of exploring and course correcting because it immediately gives me a sense of calm and tranquility, like a sense of the nothingness in the eye of the hurricane, because the hurricane is like spinning like crazy, but in the center there's like this column of space and spaciousness that organizes everything. So you're not, well, of course, if you are the hurricane, you're not carried around. You carry everything else around. So I feel this is very important on exploring your own pleasure, being sensuous pleasure, like just eating food without like overeating, or listening music without putting the sound too loud to the point that you're not enjoying too much, but you want to take in more. Or, for example, on intimacy with your beloved, how to navigate the unknown and not be clumsy and not be I don't know how to evoke delicacy and the details that unfold into new forms when you are moving in delight or in intimate delight. And is this thr threading through the maze and active choosing and deciding, which includes choosing non-doing, like staying here or moving forward. Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, so we'll do a little, oh, you know what? Is it possible to share the ability with me so that I can play a little bit of music?
Yes. Okay, let me name you host.
Or like co-host me? Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, so I'm getting my little Palo Santo stick going because I'm a little pyromaniac and
I'm loving it.
I love fire. So we're going to bring in the fire element since we were talking about keeping your fire burning. And I'm going to do some advanced sharing on Zoom so that I can share my audio. So I'm blowing you some smoke over there, letting you look at these burning embers. And so I would like to ask everybody if you want to participate in this little embodiment exercise to find a relaxing space. Maybe if you're standing or driving, don't do this, but if you can find a moment to sit down, then you can sit and relax and start to pay attention to your breath, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth with an open mouth. You can even on the exhale blow out a candle. Inhaling through the nose. Nice big inhale and exhaling through the mouth. And as you're breathing, I want you to gently start to find your weight of your body. So just feel free to lean back into your chair or relax and feel your weight of your pelvis resting and uncross your feet or your legs if they're crossed. And on the next inhale, draw the breath inwards. And on the next exhale, I'll invite you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I want you to start to pay attention to your body and any physical sensations you might have. Just doing a little body scan, relaxing the forehead, just making the forehead smooth like a silk sheet on a fresh bed. Softening the eyes and all the muscles around the eyes. Relaxing the jaw. Just feel it unwinding on the right and the left sides of the jaw joint, continuously spiraling looser and looser. Letting go of the jaw, relaxing all the muscles around your mouth and lips. Letting go of any expression on the face. Inhaling through the nose, really smelling the air. Exhaling through the mouth, hearing your breath. Relaxing and softening into your neck. Letting go of the shoulders. Letting go of the arms from the shoulder to the upper arm to the lower arm. Feeling your arms loose all the way down to the tips of the fingers. Softening in the chest, opening in the heart. Softening in the chest, opening in the heart. Relaxing those two long muscles on either side of your back, softening into the back space. And relaxing into the belly. You can take your hands and place them on your belly. Just connecting to your sacral chakra and your sacrum and your pelvis and the pelvic bowl, to the sexual organs. Feeling a little bit of a opening and closing, a squeezing and releasing the pelvic floor, letting go of the clenching, allowing the legs to feel soft and weighted all the way from the upper leg, the lower leg, all the way down through the feet and through the toes, just feeling a warm sensation through the legs and a warm sensation through the belly and pelvis, a warm sensation through the chest, warm sensation across your neck. Imagine you're snuggling yourself into a little cloud and it's forming around you. And this cloud can be your favorite color, something that you find soothing. I want you to pick an environment, an outdoor natural environment, something where you feel safe and soothed, but also a place where you feel powerful, like you could draw the energy from the natural elements around you. Maybe you're in a forest with the trees, or you're at the beach with the waves. Could be in a cave in the mountains. You could be in a fantasy world, in a bubble on the bottom of the ocean, or inside a rainbow. And in that place, that natural place, focusing on the objects that give you pleasure, whether it's water or rock or trees or flowers, animals, whatever the natural element is, just feel like it's feeding you, feeding your power source. And I want you to see it, see all of the colors, all of the shapes. Pay attention to whether it might be daytime, morning time, midday, maybe it's midnight or 3 a.m. Maybe you see the sun or the moon. If you're drawing power from a solar source, just seeing and connecting to that sun. If you're drawing power from the moon and from that lunar force, just pulling that energy in. I want you to feel this place. Feel the sun on your face. Feel the wind in your hair. Feel the moonlight streaming down across you, across the ground. I want you to smell this place. Does it smell fresh, salty, smoky, crisp, warm? What's the temperature on your skin? What are the natural elements? Bringing the nourishment of that space inside you. Breathe it inwards, breathing through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. I want you to start to see these strings, these gossamer threads shimmering and unfolding from your heart space outwards, reaching and stretching outwards to these natural elements, wrapping themselves around trees, rocks, moons, suns, oceans, animals. Just feeling the flow from your heart through these gossamer threads out to these natural elements. See these threads shining, flying through space, connecting us. And then continue continue those threads, throwing them out even further, unfurling and unfolding like ribbons flowing through space, silver and gold and shining bright and with diamonds and sparkles, flowing out to the things that you love, flowing out to what brings joy to your heart, who and what, wrapping around them, connecting to them, weaving and rolling around them, creating safe space, creating and becoming, connecting and coiling. Reach as many threads as you need to, as many ribbons. And then feel this like a lifeline flowing from your heart to these objects, to these natural objects, to these people, places, things, spaces that you love. What do I want more of in my life? What things am I calling into me? Gathering, gathering, gathering. Gathering energy, gathering color. Just think of the pure color rolling into you, pouring into your heart, flooding your body, flooding your energetic hemisphere, taking in the shapes, the textures, the feelings, the emotions, and then let this become your power. Let it surge through you down into the pelvis, rolling around inside the pelvic bowl. Maybe the colors are shifting and changing, seeing the colors shift and change into rainbow-like colors, swirling all around your sacrum, swirling up through the spine, coiling and wrapping around every bit of your DNA, coming up through the spinal cord, wrapping in and out of your cellular network, regenerating your cells, regenerating your nerves, rolling up through the top of the skull into the brain, weaving your right and left hemispheres of the brain together, connecting the right and left halves of the body, connecting the right and left eye, using your inner and outer vision to see and call anything into you that brings you into your power place, sending like a beacon out from your heart and from your third eye. Receiving the abundance, receiving the joy, receiving the love, receiving the power, receiving, receiving, receiving. And then take two big swords, one in each hand, and just swing them around and cut all of those threads and cut all of those ribbons and just get back into your own neutralized space. Any threads on your back, any threads on your front, over your head, under your feet, just slicing them all away, coming back into a neutral state. Inhaling white light. Exhaling. Wiggling a little bit through the toes, moving a little bit through the legs, moving a little bit through the pelvis, shifting the weight, moving through the spine, moving through the arms and shoulders, wiggling through the fingers, wiggling through the head. And when you get upwards towards your eyes, just letting your eyes crack open a little bit, taking in everything around you, looking around your space, making sure nobody's in here with you. How do you feel?
Wow. The space is like super bright and luminous and colorful. Like
Yay.
I feel like I have just landed in the now.
Welcome.
Really. Yeah, like, oh wow. I am here. So,
It's existing. It's existing.
yeah, yeah. not in a parallel reality of discourse. Actually, my ears are like when you get out of the swimming pool and you have water inside the ears. Very interesting. And also very interesting to see where my desire led me to. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to Paris. No, I am not gonna go to Paris. I am gonna go downtown here, like because you can go anywhere in your imagination, and it's very interesting to let yourself be carried to where you want, and also had the sensation of the limitlessness of my heart. Like, oh
Nice.
wow, I can caress the sun with my heart, even though it's extremely hot. I didn't got burned.
Good
And
job.
and it's super and yes, of course the sun is super huge, but I was like, ah yes.
Yeah, harness it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a wonderful experience to embody embody a taste of what we have talked about, the body and the intuition and also the imagination and and the pleasure in being in the body as the body and as also as the unconscious intertwined with the willfulness of the consciousness, but free from the habitual bounds of civilization. Really delightful. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Really enjoyed this.
yeah, I really enjoyed it too. So tell us, how can we learn more from you? How can we
Yeah,
get in
so
touch?
thank you. Yeah, I am a registered somatic movement therapist and educator, and I do one-on-one sessions, which is a lot of times either somatic body work, or I'm also a hypnotist and I work a bit with mixing a bit of somatics with hypnosis. And I'm doing that online with people as well. I'm working with people who have, yeah, like want to release trauma, embodied traumas, and also with people that have anxiety or anything where they feel a calling to like realign their body mind together. And if you are in Berlin in Germany, that's where I'm living now. So I do also like one-on-one private sessions in person. So you can either see me in person or if you're in Berlin, Germany, or online from anywhere in the world. And my website is www.stephanietack.com. STEPHANIETACK.com. And you can reach out to me there. My email's there. It's just info@stephanietack.com. And that would be if you want to set up a session. I also have an Instagram. It's called Shimmering Bodies. So yeah, Shimmering Bodies, SHIMMERING BODIES. There I'm always listing the types of things I'm doing. Right now, I'm involved in something called deep dating, which is for right now, it's just for singles. But we want to start offering it for couples. But it's like conscious dating with some somatic and tantric practices and activities. That's happening in person in Berlin. And then I'm also holding Sensorium. I call it the Sensorium, based on the book called This is the Sensorium, which is a beautiful book about the senses that I highly recommend if you haven't read it yet. And so I'm doing those events. They're called the Sensorium, and those are all based for couples, and they're based on the senses. So it's awakening the senses as a way for couples to connect and to deepen in their intimacy with nonverbal styles of communication and connecting. I find that a lot of people, they are a little bit in their heads, and sometimes when it comes to relating, people get stuck in a pattern of relating verbally and connecting verbally and mentally. And sometimes it's really nice for some couples to just drop into the body and have that nonverbal communication and that nonverbal communication and connections. So yeah, so you can check Shimmering Bodies on Instagram or StephanieTack.com or info@StephanieTack. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you, Sensualist, for being here. Please go immediately to follow Stephanie Tack on Instagram at shimmeringbodies.com and book your session on her website. That's her name, stephanietack.com, and also email her at info@stephanietack.com. And please, if you haven't already, make sure to get the next episode of the Sensual Sessions podcast delivered on your inbox next week. So please subscribe at my website on www.candiaraquel.com, which is my name, which is CandiaraQuel.com. And until next time, do remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame.